So, I am really, really angry at the community and how they responded to Volibear. I think Volibear was already close to balanced before this patch, but people hadn't figured out how to play him. And the other thing is that, like, Legend is a hard comp to play. People hadn't figured out how to play him. And other things are just a little out of line, like Corki and Xayah. But these buffs made sense to me, and I'm going to tell you now, I was the one who put these buffs in. So if you want to, take that and say I'm bad at my job, you go right ahead. But a lot of people were really down my throat. Now what happened is, Bebe had like one game where a Volibear did really, really well. And that, he started telling everyone it was ridiculously overpowered, and it spread like wildfire. And I'm telling you, the patch, it was Tuesday. The patch was live at like 9 p.m. my time, and they were like, I was getting DMs and the usual death threats of like how I'm bad at my job and whatever. It was terrible. So now if you look at these notes, and there's the famous one, I'm gonna pull it up because it was on TFT clips, because there was one fight in particular that everyone was freaking out about because it was Bebe's second game, and it was this fight. And the reason everyone was freaking out about this fight was because if you look, this player has Lilia 3, Ryze 3, Nami 3, Sylas 3, Alawi 3, 1, 2 mage caps, so it's like 7 mage cap, a ton of mages, up against a Volibear 2, okay? And so everyone was freaking out because what's going to happen is if I play this out, the Volibear's going to win. The Volibear's going to win this fight. If you really want to see it, here you go.
Get him, get him.
I'm going to mute it, but here's the fight. And you'll notice the Volibear now has a bajillion health and is doing his damage and is doing his thing and wiping the board, and Ryze is dead. And everything's great here. And sure enough, the Volibear is going to win this, and he's good to go. So, sure enough, he wins, and everyone starts freaking out, like, oh my god, it's a Volibear 2. How could he win that? Okay. Well, a couple things happened there in that fight. One is that Ryze got destroyed and CC'd. And two, pro tip, if you're ever going to play Ryze, you need healing. But let's ignore that for a second. If you look at these patch notes, okay, Volibear 2's damage was buffed by 5. Not 5%, 5. 5 damage, okay? Do we think 5 damage made Volibear wildly OP all of a sudden? No. There's just zero chance, okay? Now, you could make the argument, oh, it was totally the attack speed buff. Okay, sure. But remember, that's still in there. That's still in. So if Volibear is bad right now, it certainly wasn't the attack speed change. So now we have to talk about the health. Now this is the one where people look at it and they go, big number changed big. Oh my god, this is crazy. Okay, like, oh my god, how did they not know 650 to 1,000? I will point out that this has changed, remember. This does not scale, period. You cannot scale this health with Dragonmancer, you cannot scale it with Legend. So what this basically means is, that same Volibear we just saw in the video, pre-patch, post-patch, would have been 350 health different. Do we think 350 health made a difference that fight? No. There is no way 350 health made a difference that fight. And so everyone freaking out, going out about these changes as if these made any difference whatsoever was like maddening to me. And again, I'm getting death threats about like, how could I not see these Volibear changes were going to make a difference? It's like, these didn't do it, okay? This was not the problem. The problem, and again, this is where like, it's my job to know these things, but again, having everyone yell at me at Backseat Dev, the problem was twofold. There were two mistakes here. One, this is the one that I'll attribute to us, is Legend. Legend, buffing it from, well, this is the B patch, but we buffed it from 40 to 50. That was a big mistake. Because what that did is, with the Chalice that you saw there, and a lot of the Chalice setups that we see in Legend, all of a sudden, the Volibear was getting like 20, 30, 40% more AP. So, the Legend change was actually the problem. And everyone's like, oh, but it's just 10% AP. No, it's not just 10% AP. It's 10% on top of the Chalice value, which is a common way to play it, right? Like, with Legend, what you're doing is usually it's like the Warmog's Chalice, Nico, steal that, get it in the Volibear. And that gave him a lot more damage. This was the big thing. And no one was yelling at me about this. Everyone was yelling at me about these changes. And it's insane. And so what I had to do, and I hate that I had to do this, is I reverted them for what we call a perception gain. I still think these changes were correct. Because what these changes were meant to do was make Volibear more playable in things like Shimmer Scale, where he needs the extra HP, not Dragonmancer and Legend. So it sucks, but because everyone was down my throat, I had to do the perception change hit. And I hate that, but I've told you guys many times before that balance is often about perception, not reality. And this one was definitely one that was a perception undo. And so again, the two things that are the problem here were Dragonmancer and Legend, but literally go read the Reddit threads and they're just like down my throat on Volibear. And it had nothing to do with Volibear. And so I'm getting destroyed, I'm getting yelled at, I'm getting whatever, and they're not even right. And that's what was frustrating to me, is like, and again, the patch hadn't even been live 12 hours, and I'm getting reamed. And like somehow after 3 years, the fact that 12 hours after a patch, people still think they need to yell at me like this, put me in a really bad place, and I got really angry. So, and yeah, so that's my Volibear rant. And so, oh, and so there's one other thing. There's one other thing we have to talk about with Volibear. Is Reddit not just the vocal minority, though? No, they are. And that's, admittedly, I have to get... That's how I bounce back, is I remind myself that that's, like, not even 1% of our player base. And that, like, a lot of the viewers, like you and stuff like that, are much nicer and kinder and appreciate the game and stuff like that. Okay, one more problem with Volibear I want to talk about. Everyone's like, oh my god, Volibear 2 did all this work. It's not even a Volibear 3. I want to point out that I think Volibear is a poorly designed champ for one reason right now. What is the difference between Volibear 2 and Volibear 3 right now? Obviously 80% health. Can't argue that. But keep in mind, this is 80% health that doesn't scale with Dragonmancer, doesn't scale with Legend. So, again, it's like 800 health. Not bad. But he gets +1 target. So he goes from 4 targets to 5 targets, and the damage doesn't actually scale much. This leads to situations where, like, oh my god, that Volley 2 beat Volley 3. And it's like, yeah, because the Volley 2 had better items, and they're basically 1v1 the same damage. I think that is a big, big mistake right now. I think Volley 3 needs to feel like an actual upgrade. So I'm probably going to put in something next patch where, like, the targets don't change and we can actually up the damage. But that's just something that I've noticed that's like, Volley 3 doesn't even frickin' matter. So anyway, that's my Volley rant. Pretty annoyed. So that was part of that was the rough Wednesday. And the other thing is, so I'm getting yelled at constantly, by the way. And so what do? I barely get any sleep because I'm watching Bebe stream and I'm watching everyone yell at me and I'm getting all these DMs. I try to sleep around 10. I wake up at 5, drive into work at 5:30. I have meetings all day from 9 on, so I'm like, shit, I'm not going to have any time to get any work. So from 5:30 to 8:30, I spend time labbing Volibear and Deja to try to get the numbers right, to get them balanced, so that I could give them to Kent. I'm like, okay, Kent, you run with it from here. Here's all my logic, you go. And then I had to do all my meetings, it was nothing else, so that we could ship out that micro patch just to make sure perception was in a good spot for the game. So there you go. There's my Volibear rant. I'm done ranting. Let's play TFT.